Welcome to another Inside the Process. Here's where I bring you inside the creative process or the experiences of making music. Draw back the curtain and talk a little bit, maybe talk too much. And I think this is appropriate because my process is often a clutter fest. So, welcome to my clutter fest. Up here is the big clutter fest. You'll see in the description to this video a link to the support page of my website if you are so inclined. Thank you so much to those of you who do support and encourage me along the way. Now we are on my YouTube channel, Joe Holt's Notes 2021. It's what I call my annual channel. I make one every year. Yes, I'm ridiculous. So until it's 2022, Inside the Process will be on this channel. The Piano for My Friends Hour will be on my main or highlights channel, Joe Holt's Notes. So let's go forward here. Living there is the theme. And what I'll often say about the process of learning music is the way to really learn anything, to learn it deeply, is to live there. And in particular with jazz. Jazz prior to it becoming essentially, well, I won't say essentially, it becoming in part, or I was going to say it became an academic pursuit. I don't want to entirely say that, although in some measure it really has these days. But the pushing out of jazz with the vocabulary and, we'll put it this way, the math, all of that, was not the way it was initially, prior to bebop. And I came up, even though that was before my time, I sort of immersed myself in the time before my time and hung out with the musicians from that time, because it was long ago enough that those big band era musicians were still out there and playing when I was coming up, and they were the guys who mentored me. And really you learned by doing and by being around people who do it, as opposed to learning formally. And I went through a phase when I was younger, because of a lot of stuff going on around me, I didn't understand that I was somehow deficient, and because I hadn't learned formally, I wasn't a jazz player, and all of this stuff to eventually get me to the point to recognize that I had a wheel I couldn't reinvent, and that wheel was an old school wheel, just like the players who came up in the 30s and 40s, although I came up in the 70s. You live there, you do it, you appropriate it. And I'm getting ahead of myself and messing up my notes completely already, but you've heard me say this before perhaps. It's much like a toddler learns a language. And if you're learning music, we'll take this now generally, and you're formally studying, let's say you're learning to be a classical pianist. What you're learning to do is interpret the symbols and enter through that realm of how classical music is preserved, and you're learning about things. Or if you're on the jazz side of things, you're learning about music theory, and you're learning all these things to think about. And that's all important, and that all helps. But the process of expression is not through either of those channels. The process of expression is through this deeper place. And it's the place where a toddler learns how to communicate and learns language. So this little 1-2-year-old starts forming sentences and starts being able to communicate, and sentences become longer and they become more fluent. And all of this before they're taught to read or write, or taught about the theory of what they're saying, because it's in our nature, it's in our ability. Actually, that's how we learn. So sometimes we get, we lose sight of that aspect of learning. And so I always come back to, if you want to learn music, live there. And there's all kinds of ways to live there. And of course, formal studying and practicing is one. one, not the one. So, let's see what my notes actually say and how much I went all over the place already. Okay. So, at this point in my life, my process, it's all about living there. To the point where I structure my time, I structure my day, I order things based on living there to the fullest, and as much as I can, living everything, not just music, from that same space. The space I can get myself into play. So some years ago, I began to understand that if I'm going to be in the space I need to be, I need to live there from the moment I get up, or as soon as possible, at the piano, and what I'll term opening the space. You've heard me say that. And if I want to get there deeply, I commune with it immediately. And so my living there typically starts first thing in the morning, of course, with the qualification, whatever defines morning for this musician on a particular day. Of course, the lyrics in that song, "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning," you can take them totally, literally here where I live. Mornings are beautiful. And those of you who know me and live near me, particularly if you were friends with me on Facebook, about 10 years ago well, not quite, maybe 7, 8 years ago was when it really started peaking. I went through this little phase where I was still on that body clock of getting up early in the morning, usually before sunrise, and putting my kids on the school bus. That was my, responsibility. No matter what time I got home from the gig, I was up. And and my body clock did not reset immediately. It has at this point, but it didn't. Of course, when I was coming up as a young musician, it was, go to bed at 4:30, 5 in the morning, get up at the crack of noon. But, gigging all the time, gigging every night. I remember when I got that mall food court gig in Cherry Hill Mall, which I had for 11 years, but the first 2 years I think it was 6 days a week. It might have been 7 at times. And mostly my shift was noon to 2. It was a struggle to be ready to go at noon. But got it turned around with the kids in school, and 7, 8 years ago, I started taking these walks. I lived about a mile from the Chester River Bridge outside of Chestertown. I walk into town every morning and take pictures and caption them. And, it was just, at the time of inner exploration that I was sharing with people. And the mornings are beautiful. And if you know this area, you know how beautiful the sunrise and the sunsets can be. But that's not what I was going to talk about. The beautiful morning at this point that's what I was going to say. Good. And I realized that no matter how heart-opening that is for me, I need to actually start here. Now, occasionally, if I'm up early enough for a sunrise, I will go out, and then what will probably happen is I'll get caught up in a conversation. And then then the pegs start missing the slot, sometimes for the rest of the day. And living someplace for me is a commitment. So we open up the space, and I can talk in other streams with other emphasis about what I do, and I've talked about some of that, to open up the space. But I do take living there seriously and globally, and it's related to accepting this as a calling. To me, playing the piano isn't a job. It was never, I can't say it was never a job, but when I got to the point where I understood this as a calling, it just became my life. And it's the only life I know how to lead. At times along the way, you think about, what if? And I have these every few years for about 15 minutes, a kind of serious what if thought. Or maybe, or perhaps, could this work? This would really make sense for once in my life, that kind of thing. And honestly, I had one just recently. That one didn't last 5 minutes. It lasted about 90 seconds, but it was serious for those 90 seconds. But I keep coming back to, this is the only life I know how to lead, and I am blessed to be here. and they do count my blessings. But as I'm playing that, and I've said this many times, if I'm, at least approaching or near in the zone I need to be, I have some brain space because I'm not using it. Uh, it sounds weird. I'm not using that thought process thing, conscious thought thing, and thoughts can go through my head. And I don't want to get off balance and present this in such a way that if you are a musician, excuse me, and you don't have the ability to like live there entirely, and most people don't, and most people shouldn't, and most people can't. That doesn't take away from your experience. You live there when you can, and you make it part of your discipline. Uh, a general theme of this is that all the ways that you can experience music are ways that will contribute to your musical growth if you're a musician. And it just becomes all part of a larger context. So if you're somebody who, I admire anybody who has a normal, day job and has all the responsibilities and finds time to practice, and, you're really lucky if you can find an hour or whatever. And you take that and you run with it. So I don't want my experience to deter anybody else because any forward motion is good. The thing that you don't want as an artist or in something related, and I would equate art, you've heard me, I'm going to say this all the time, you've heard me say this, some of you haven't, that artistic growth and spiritual growth are much the same thing, in that we grow in the awareness of what's out there, of what can be. In the process, we find ourselves smaller and smaller in relation to it, which is its own, kind of emotional thing you have to realize that's happening. But as long as you're moving that way, the speed that you're moving is less important. It's not like a goal to like get there the fastest. There, where? Or be the best. No, the goal is to grow and to appropriate. And so living there is unique to all of us as to how we do it. And for crazies like me, it's as much as possible. Now, there are times and pursuits and things, just responsibility-wise, that you get into, and you can't. And, so we all ultimately struggle with the same things in different ways. But living there, spending time around it, observing it, interacting with it, doing it. And this is where I was going to bring up the toddler and the language illustration. But I can tag on to that it is after a young child learns to communicate. Now, my granddaughter, who is now 2, intelligent, oh man, she knows, she understands everything that's going on. She's in charge, by the way. But she's a person right now of very few words. But when you say what she wants to hear, or you say something she agrees with, yeah. And then she gets it and she goes. But when those words come, kabam, they're gonna come. But everything she understands is because she's experienced it and she's figured it out, and that's how the brain works. But there's going to come a time when she will learn her ABCs, and then she'll learn to make words, and she'll go to school, and she'll do all of that, and that's going to help her communicating. But her communicating and her skills are deep in and being touched right now. But that little transition to formal learning reminds me of a song that my mother would sing to me when I was little. She had a list of tunes, and most every night it were the same ones, and I loved it. Bill Grogan's Goat and the Frog You Went A-Courtin'. And now, my mother's family was from Kentucky, and we'll get into my boyhood from Kentucky at some other time. But it was, I eat my peas with honey. I've done it all my life. I eat my peas with honey because it keeps them on my knife. But I freak people out when I do that. So I try only to do it when I'm alone. And another song she would sing is actually not a song from Kentucky. It's a song, I forget, Perry Como or one of those people did it. And it's a version of the alphabet song. Anyone know this? A, you're adorable. B, you're so beautiful. C, you're a cutie full of charms. D, you're a darling. E, you're exciting. And F, you're like a feather in my arms. All right, I'm going to stop. Wow, I remembered those words. It really did. Oh, of course I knew it meant something to me. So, when training comes, then you learn your alphabet, right? And you learn your stuff. So, in terms of being drawn to make music, the Tyler illustration will play out if we recognize or if we let it. If we don't confine ourselves to the formalities of playing. Understanding, I mean, for all that my practice is about that kind of, opening the space and stuff, it's also about learning classical pieces I'll never be able to pull off in public and all sorts of other things. So it's a big picture. And of course, the forks in the road, the many-pronged forks, are in our individual temperaments. And, when I talk about what I'm doing as a musician, it's always in the context of who I am. And not that everybody should be like me, but I think it helps anyone to hear somebody who has figured out their path talk about their path, because there's something about it that everybody can glean, because we all share the human experience. But some of us, are much more, structured and oriented, and do things more in a straight line and can follow that. And other people like me are just it's a big splatter fest, like my piano and other things that the camera is not going to show you around the piano. Not going to happen. So we all do this from, of course, who we are. And it's if you're willing to see it this way, and I guess it's once you accept that it's who you are, you can accept that it's a long road, because you know that you're on that path and you're going to stay on that path, whether it's a profession or whether it isn't. And I've told this story recently, but I think I've only told it once. I'm going to tell it again, and if you haven't heard it, good. So I made communication or got back in touch with the family of a student I taught when I was in my 20s. And it was some years ago, but a long time after, when Tina was her name, was my piano student, and she was a teenager, I think, a young teenager. And she was my star student, and she was a good musician. Always, was the cleanup hitter in my recitals for the students and such. And the Tina's mother, when I talked to her on the phone after many years, was really hesitant. And Tina's mother was not somebody to be hesitant, but she was, yeah. She didn't want to tell me this, but she had to, and she was apologetic that Tina had given up the piano and taken up the bassoon. And she didn't want me to be disappointed. And I said, what? Disappointed? The idea about being a musician is that flame it's not about playing a particular instrument. It's about, and this is kind of a point of this too. It becomes more than just doing. It becomes being, and then doing from being. Who are you? You're a musician. You play music. That's what you do. But you're doing that from who you are, right? And Tina, for strategic reasons, interesting reasons, took up the bassoon in college. And I didn't know she went to the same college that I did, and knew the same professors I did, who knew me, so there was that connection made in college to me that I found out later, from one professor in particular. But I was just so thrilled that what the goal is to cultivate who you are. Yeah, what you do, but what you do is less important if you stop being that person who's going to do it. It means nothing. If you give up music, what's the training going to do? I mean, something, yeah, but really the goal is you grow a musician. And then you just go, right? And so Tina's a musician, and she teaches, and she plays in her church, I believe, and, success. Live there. She lives there. And that road, that's the point. You let the road, once you know who you are, then you can take that long and winding road. That's where I was going. Ha. long winding road. Aren't they all when they really go someplace, though? So, the road, the path, best path for you is the one you find, or the one that finds you. Especially if you can look at it beyond yourself and look at it in a broader connection to what's around you, however you see that, to the big picture, to God, to however you see it. Walk the path. Now, all kind of ways to live there, right? And of course, it depends on what kind of music you play, what your circumstances are, what your background is, what your level is. But one thing for people who it's applicable to is play with other musicians. And actually, that's pretty much applicable to everyone at some point. And pianists really suffer from this because you get in the solo piano bubble, and I've said many times it was ninth grade that I've really learned something important. For all the years I played piano up until ninth grade, I really didn't get. Although I did play baritone horn in my middle school band, but I guess the discipline of that was not rigid enough. So that when I got to high school, and trumpet was my double, to play in the concert band. Because if you want to do anything, you had to be in the marching band and in the concert band and all that. And you couldn't play piano all the time. And through playing with other musicians, I realized how inwardly focused my time was and my conception was, and I was in my own universe. So like playing with other people starts to connect you with people around you, which is what music is. Music is communication. Music is connection. It's a very basic thing. If you're playing most any other instrument, that's not an issue, because you're going to wind up playing with other people because it's the nature of those instruments. The piano, you can kind of fall into that little hole. So once you're able to, I'll tell people, go play with other musicians, go to jam sessions, just do anything with other people. Just go jam, find a way. little C jam blues. Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to check the back side of this little phone, make sure we are on track, and we are. Good, good, good. All right, so Duke's Place is the less common title of that. C Jam Blues is the common title. That was the jam reference. So discover. Even if your training is formal, and even if you're very rigid in what you practice, give yourself the freedom to explore and discover. And it may seem like, of course, not everyone watching this is a musician, so you can actually generalize this. Be in discover mode all the time. Now, I remember not having any instruction in anything related to improvisation, because my teacher didn't do that. He encouraged me to improvise, but he was no help whatsoever. But when I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I started formal piano lessons when I was 7, but I kind of noodled with music since I was 2. And I made a particular discovery called secondary dominant chords. I had no idea what that term was until I got to college. I told you college music theory was, oh, that's what you call it, class, right? And the song that informed me of secondary dominant chords, or this concept, regardless of what it's called, is 502 Eyes of Blue. That chord progression is just a series of ongoing tensions that resolve into other tensions and resolve into other tensions. So here we go. Tension, tension, doesn't resolve here, tension. You finally rest, right? That's a basic thing. But man, when I discovered that, I went to town, not only playing 502 Eyes of Blue, but it was just like, okay, I got something here. And it was yeah. I tripped over it, but I found it. Yeah. Was a little spirited. 502 Eyes of Blue, yeah. I remember that discovery well. Got a lot of mileage from it. So I wrote down a bunch of things. Jam, discover, learn, study, hang. hang, you know, hang out with people who do it, be around people who do it, you know, go to concerts, listen to records, you know, be friends with people who are in your tribe, right? And you know, when you learn something, when you study, thing about practicing, and this is kind of a different subject, but it applies here. Always know what the objective is that you're practicing to. It is not about learning songs. Learning music, well, I can't say that, but I can say that, and I did. But it seems like now, especially in the age of YouTube tutorials with the electric piano, with the, you know, it looks like Guitar Hero when it comes down and the piano keys, you know, that's so foreign to me because it's like rote learning songs. Like, I want to learn a song. I'm like, and I want to learn you to be a musician. You know, and it's like, and then you can play that song and you can play zillions of other songs. You know, don't learn to do something, learn to be something. So I remember when I took my first jazz piano lesson. You know, and it wasn't until I was in my 20s. And you know, I was already playing, but it was the living there, and it was then, you know, you maybe saw the stream, the video with Paul Mediri, you know, and playing with other people and doing it old school. But I didn't have any like formal theory jazz knowledge or improvisation training or anything. And I went to a teacher in Philly. He was adjunct at the college I went to. His name was Gerald Price. And oh, it was kind of a funny story. I don't know if I should tell the story. Let's just say he was very intimidating. And he also forgot I was coming. And so he was suspicious of why I was like around his house trying to figure out how to get past the pit bull in his yard. But we got past all that, so I'm just like a ball of like, oh my goodness. And he said, play something, and I played whatever I played. And then he said, okay, now what do you want from me? Like, this is not going well, I'm saying to myself, you know. And then when I explained to him that, like, help me understand anything. And then he went on a tangent about one simple subject, one little theoretical concept, right? And that theoretical concept just got, and it's something that I could understand, you know, and it just got applied everywhere and everywhere and everywhere. And he kept it about that one thing. And you really, you know, when you're practicing, focus on that one piece. Like if you're practicing a scale, you can break it down, you know, easily to 6, 7, 8 reasons to practice a scale. You know, for time, for technique, for ear training, you know, and focus specifically on that thing. So that one thing he showed me, I was able to take it home and dissect it and apply it. And I got about, honestly, 2 years of like working things out on my own out of that one lesson. You know, I eventually like hooked up with a teacher, an academic guy, and studied regularly. But you know, just take that one thing and do it. And the tune, that's right, that's my note here. The tune, I'm pretty sure, I had to think about this, but I'm 99% positive the tune was As Time Goes By that he worked with me with. There we go. As time goes by. And notice I didn't tell you what the concept was because that's less important. And this is really not necessarily an educational thing. Okay, fine, 2/5. The 2/5 concept, you know. And I think you did a chromatic 2/5 on that second one, and I couldn't get past that it was not really harmonious with the melody, and you know, so it got me thinking, you know, that if you do a chromatic, oh, stop it, Joe. Oh, fine. If you do, so you take it up a half step, bring it down. So what I wanted to do, I haven't played with this for a bit. I wanted to take the melody up a half step. I said, no, you don't, you know, but yeah, fun stuff. Yeah, so all these ways to be there, and of course, practice, play songs, but play songs from the musician in you that you're developing, right? You do from your being. You don't do for the sake of doing, right? And all of that comes from living there, knowing where home is. Now, before I start playing, this is a tune that I refreshed myself on right before I started the stream, because I hadn't really played much in a long time, and now I can't remember what key I did it in and if the bridge is going to work. I'm telling you too much. Close the curtain. Let's see what happens. Remember, I didn't do it in this key. I did it in C, but let's see what happens. We'll experiment here. Let's sing this key. There you go, living there. I don't know how substantive it was, but I hope it was informative or enjoyable, or it didn't make you fall asleep. Thank you for watching this. Inside the Process is going to be uploaded to my Joe Holt's Notes 2021 channel to premiere every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Piano for My Friends will premiere on my Joe Holt's Notes channel, my main channel, on Thursday evenings Eastern Time 7 p.m. And I expect, and I think it's been the case, that more people will watch the cocktail hour style piano. This is more of a specialty thing. Not that I'm making it harder to find on purpose, but I do segregate my video posts. It's kind of clutter. It's what I'm about. So things have been changing in my schedule. And it's funny, COVID is impacting some things and not other things. It's geographical. A couple of jazz festivals I was going to be a part of next month on the West Coast have been canceled. Last weekend we had the Chestertown Jazz Festival. It was wonderful. And it's just going to be like that. We're going to just have to be in the moment and be open to whatever the moment is. And I would think, and of course I'd like to see these streams and videos. Now not live streams. I may go back to it when Facebook stops punishing me for something a hacker did, or maybe I'm going to stay with video premieres on YouTube. But either way, I would like to keep this piece of the puzzle. So thank you for considering the support link. Thank you for all your encouragements, whatever they are. Thank you for being here, and I'll look to see you again, and hopefully sometime soon in person. Thanks.